Everyone knows therapy is great for solving problems, but getting therapy has its own problems too, like finding the right therapist, fitting into their schedule, and of course, the cost. Well, BetterHelp can solve those problems. It's totally online and built around your schedule. It's surprisingly affordable too. Connect with a credentialed therapist by phone, video, or online chat, all from the comfort of your home. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% on your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P.
You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee.
Thank you, Yonela Rasi, for being on the podcast.
It's a pleasure. You're most welcome.
Thank you. So share with everyone where you're from, because you are definitely not U.S. based like most of my listeners, and a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so as I said, I'm Yonela and I am from South Africa. I grew up in a little town called East London, which is in the south of the country. I've moved to Cape Town once I got married to my husband, and now we're living in Johannesburg, like I said. I basically run a non-profit organization called the Lakhanya Foundation. I named that foundation after my son, who was stillborn at 38 weeks. I also miscarried a year before that, a little daughter named Iminati at 16 weeks. So right now what I'm doing is I am giving women a voice in a society that has deemed baby loss a taboo topic. And since I'm in South Africa, it is basically a stigmatized topic that no one ever talks about. I was actually telling a friend of mine who runs a support group in Cape Town for baby loss moms a story that I only found out about other women in my tribe going through miscarriage and stillbirth once I had gone through something like that. And what my mom told me was that, had you had this while we were in the rural areas, your children would be buried on a pile of wood and no one would ever talk about this. And that actually got me thinking that there are so many other women in my culture and in the various traditions in South Africa that are going through what I went through. And we are silenced because culture and traditions dictate that we women should be silenced in our pain. So I created the Lakhanya Foundation to help women break the silence, because if I have a conversation with you and we get other people to join in this conversation, we actually are starting an awareness, and that awareness only needs to start with two people having a conversation together. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's a humongous and colossal, basically, task that I've taken upon myself, but my husband has been such a huge support in the initiatives that I've started that a lot of women have actually come on board, which has been great. It's been awesome. The amount of support and friends that I've made through my son's name being out there has been awesome. Basically, it's the only way I can describe it, because I feel so blessed every day when all these baby loss moms, Black women, coming to me saying, listen, I didn't know that people like you existed, and people like me who I can relate to, who can empathize with my situation, were out there and no one was talking about this. So to see you talking about this and being so open with your pain, especially in our society, has been like a huge eye opener for me and for all the other moms that have jumped on board with the various initiatives that I've got going on. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Love that. So take us on that journey. Tell us about your lost story and your journey of getting pregnant with your son and your daughter, and just take us on that journey through your loss and your grief.
Okay. So back in 2016, we moved to Cape Town, and shortly after we moved, we found out that we were pregnant and we were expecting our first baby. Had never been pregnant before. I think I was still 22, and it was just, I felt like I was in a whirlwind of emotions. But we were so excited because we didn't think that we would get pregnant so soon. But, we became accustomed to the fact that we were going to be parents, and it was an amazing experience. And we had gone to our first doctor's appointment to find out that we were expecting a girl. And on our second appointment, we found out that she didn't have a heartbeat anymore. And which was so weird because we had already gone through the process of we were going to name her Iminati, which means that God is with us. So although we were confused and we were young and we were trying to get accustomed to this whole process that we were about to go, we were just like, we have faith in the fact that God has given us this gift and we're about to bring this baby into the world. And he was going to be with us in bringing this child into this world. And when we found out that she didn't have a heartbeat anymore, it was a huge take on for both of us. And we, we tried. I don't think we fully grieved that loss. I think we were too young to come to terms with what had happened because we didn't realize that we were still grieving the loss of our daughter until we lost our second baby. So just to revert back, after we lost immunity, we carried on for about 4 more months under this dark cloud that I didn't know how we could get out of. And as newlyweds in a new town far away from family, it was just, I could feel that my husband and I were just drifting because we both didn't know. We didn't have the tools for us to be able to come together, even in prayer, and say, how do we move forward from this loss? So about 6 months later, unconsciously, God decided it was time for us to apparently have another baby. So we found out that we were expecting a boy around about the 21st week of pregnancy. Because I think although I had the morning sickness and all the other signs that, listen, you've got a baby growing inside you, and all my body telling me, giving me all these signs, we were just so in denial that there's no way that we can have another baby or God can give us another child after experiencing such a loss. But we found out that we were expecting again. And I don't mean to laugh because I just think it's so humorous because the timing couldn't have been any impeccable because when we found out that we were expecting Lakhanya, I think I had given up on being a mother because this was my first pregnancy and I had lost that baby and I didn't think motherhood was for me. And if this wasn't for me, then I had reached the point where I had accepted that. And unfortunately, God was there telling me that no, actually, I've got other plans for you. So we found out that we were expecting Lakhanya and everything was normal. All my checkups were fine until the 32nd week where I became very ill, very dizzy, and I spent about a week in the hospital because I'd been diagnosed with gestational diabetes. And I was warned by my doctors and my gynaes that because I had this kind of diabetes, my baby was growing exponentially larger than an average baby. But I was reassured that as long as I keep my blood sugars normal, I would be fine, my baby would be fine. So everything was excellent. I kept my sugars. My husband was monitoring what I ate every day. And up until the 38th week, I called my gynae. I told him, listen, I'm not feeling this little man kicking as much as he used to anymore. And he reassured me, no, man, Yonela, you're fine. The baby's fine. As we told you, he might not be moving as much as he used to, but he is bigger than a normal average baby, which means that he's probably running out of space. And because it was coming from a doctor, I took that at face value. But little did we know that he had passed on. So about a day before, because I was going to give birth at my 38th week, because I had been scheduled for a C-section. So a day before my surgery, I went into my doctor as a normal consult, and right right when we were about to have the scan, he he did the scan for about a few seconds. He couldn't find the heartbeat, and I asked him what was wrong. He just couldn't give me an answer. He just kept staring blankly at this monitor, and I knew something was wrong. And I knew that in prior visits to my gynae, like we were always able to find his heartbeat right away. It was never an issue. So when we couldn't find it this time around, it was an alert that something was wrong. And the doctor kept quiet for about a few minutes. Took him a good maybe 8 to 9 minutes to say anything back to me. But when he did, the first words out of his mouth was, "This baby's not alive anymore." And in my head, I think I wasn't thinking correctly, but in my head, I was like, okay, what do we do? Do we have an emergency C-section? Are you going to rush me to the doctor? Are you going to rush me to the hospital? What's going to happen? And his next line was, there is no heartbeat. There is nothing I can do. So we scheduled the C-section for the next day, and I delivered my stillborn son on the 2nd of June, 2018. So that is my story of loss.
Much for sharing. So take us on just the days after loss, the days, the weeks, the months after, and just take us on how you begin to grieve and how you begin to heal, and tell us about that journey.
I think the first week, because I had had a C-section with my second pregnancy, it was a very numbing process to go through because I was in pain because of surgery. But I think my family, because I was around family at that point, they were trying so much to not let me concentrate on the loss until I was physically capable to take care of myself. Like I said before, I didn't realize that I was grieving the loss of my first child until I lost my second child, because when I'd lost Lakhanya, which means he who brings light, he was my rainbow baby. He was the baby that was supposed to bring hope into my life. Hope that I could actually bear living children and bring those children to life. And when I lost him, all those emotions kept coming back, and I felt like I was on a roller coaster of emotions. And that was the process for about a good 4 weeks after I lost Lakhanya. It was hard. I don't even want to lie. It was hard. It was a draining process. Grief for me became something of obviously grief is an unwelcome feeling, but it became, I hated myself. I hated the body I was living in because that was the body that had failed me. I hated seeing my scar every morning because that was the path in which my baby came into this world. But even when he did, he was not alive. I just hated seeing myself and seeing the failure that I'd become as a woman, as a mother, as this soul being that is brought into the world to reproduce and bring life. And up until that day, I had not been able to bear a living child. I hated myself. I don't even want to lie. And I have those days where I still do, and I look in the mirror and I see my C-section scar, and I'm constantly reminded of my loss. But it wasn't until I started going through social media and I started seeing a psychologist, because I realized that I couldn't live in this black hole that I'd sunk myself into. I started seeing a psychologist, and She was an extremely nice woman, encouraged me to talk about my loss, mention my baby's name if I have to, because that's how I'm going to keep my baby alive in me. And I started looking for women to relate to, to empathize with, because although the people around me were being extremely supportive, but I needed someone who had gone through what I had gone through. Like, I love my mother, but she has never lost a child. She has brought two beautiful babies into this world and has never gone through the pain of ever losing a child. Of course, she's lost two grandchildren, but she hasn't gone through what I had gone through. And my husband had lost a son and a daughter, but he hadn't carried those babies. My sister had lost a nephew and a niece, but it was a different kind of grief for them than it was for me. So I needed people around me that wouldn't just say that, oh, you're still young, you can have another one, you can always have another baby. You guys are still young. I needed someone who was just going to be there and say, I know what you're going through. And someone who had been there and gone past that point and was okay. I needed someone to say, at the end of the tunnel, there is light, even though you are living in darkness right now. So it wasn't until I started going through social media and searching for these kind of people, because around me, in society, in my community, no one seemed to be open enough to tell me that there were other women who were going through this or had gone through this. Even in my own family, no one seemed to comfort me in a way to say, listen, I have been where you are. I have lost children. I have given birth to a stillborn child. So once I started seeing all these beautiful women on social media posting pictures of their sons and their daughters, women that have lost twins and were still and had so much strength to share their pain with the world, I relinquished all selfishness in that moment. And I realized that it wasn't just about me. Oh, yes, it was my loss, but my loss has to be greater than myself at this point. I have to be I have to be strong, because when I was in grief, and I say this because I know that grief is not a period. You don't grieve, and as a society, we need to move away from that, where we think of grief as a period, as a phase. So you grieve now and it ends. We need to start thinking of grief as, because where there's grief, there's love, and where there's love, there will always be love. So I needed to step away from myself. And once I did that, I realized that the death of my babies had a much greater purpose than me feeling sorry for myself or me thinking God has punished me. There had to be a purpose, because only God knows the plans that He has for my life. So there had to be a purpose in me not bearing living children. And once I saw that, and I became so amazed by these strong women. And I started thinking that what's happening around me? Where are these women in my country, where I live, in my community, in my family? Why are these women not speaking out? Because whenever I went onto social media, I would see these beautiful Caucasian women posting pictures of their stillborns. And I just started wondering, in my culture, I'm sure I'm not the only Black female that has gone through baby loss, but why are we not speaking of this? And that is when my grief became this beautiful thing, where I wanted to talk about my babies. And that's when I realized that in me talking about my loss, grief came softer to me. I started welcoming grief as part of my life. Yes, there are days when I feel like death, and I suffer from depression and anxiety because of it. And there are days when I want to end my life, but because of all the work that I've done, I realized that if I commit suicide and if I kill myself, that'll be like killing my babies all over again. That'll be the death of my children again. And what happens to the legacy of my children? because my children are living through me right now. So I have to do what is best for them through me. So the past year, well, it hasn't been a year. It's only been 8 months since the death of my son, and it's been a year and 6 months since the death of my daughter. So the past 2 years have been a whirlwind. It's been hard. There's been ups, there's been downs, there's been days when I've had to commit myself into a hospital just to make sure that I remain sane and there are people there to look after me. And there's days when I feel independent and I can do things and I feel strong enough to help other women. But I'm also conscious of the fact that I am also a lost mom, and whatever those females and those women are going through, I have gone through too, and I'm still going through, which is what I always tell the baby lost moms that I do talk to on a daily basis, is that here's my number, call me, here's my email me if you need to talk. I don't guarantee you that I'll know what to say, but I guarantee you this, I will know what not to say because I have been where you are. But right now, today, as I'm talking to you, I am in a good space because of all the work that I'm doing. But I know that tomorrow I probably will feel bad, or it won't be as good as today, but I accept that that's grief, and I coexist with those days because I know that those days won't last a month. I know that I cannot live my life in darkness, and that's what keeps me alive because my son is what has brought life into my world. So that's what keeps me alive every day, is that I know that even though I may be in a cloud of darkness, but it does not rain forever. It will not storm forever because there has to be light at the end of whatever pain I'm going through at the moment. Yeah, and that's that.
Thanks for sharing that.
Today's podcast episode is sponsored by Living Waters Doula Services. Out of her belly will flow rivers of living water. Rivers carry life and bring it forth to those who need it. I am excited to begin offering Living Waters Doula Services to my sisters-in-laws. What is a doula? A doula is a non-clinically trained support person who provides emotional, physical, and informational assistance before, during, and after childbirth. My goal as your doula is to help you heal, remove anxiety and fear, and find peace and hope on your infertility and pregnancy journey. If you are currently trying to conceive and would like fertility support, if you are currently pregnant after loss, or if you want grief support for your recent loss, I'm available to share space with you as your doula and support you on this journey. For more details about Living Waters Doula Services, visit ericamcafee.com/doula. That is ericamcafee.com/DOULA. I'm excited to share space with you.
So let's talk about the other resources that you use. Besides the Instagram, you mentioned Instagram. Are there any other websites or local resources that you use to help you through your journey? You talked about your therapist, your psychologist that you go to.
Yeah, I do have a psychologist. I haven't seen her in a while. I think it's because I'm trying to see how far I can get on my own. But I do have a psychologist. I do have a psychiatrist who I speak to on a monthly basis, just because I have been diagnosed with depression and anxiety as a result of the losses that I faced. And sometimes I do need antidepressants or sleeping tablets just to get through a day where I'm feeling not too good. I do use Instagram on a daily basis just for encouragement and to encourage other women. I also have a blog that I use more of a diary purpose, just to write what I'm feeling on a particular day or month, to help other women see that I'm not all happy all the time. As much as I'm the strong woman, there's days when I don't feel as strong, and I write about those vulnerable days as much as I write about the good days. I do have baby loss talks and support groups that I go to. There's a woman called Eliza Hatton, and she hosts various support groups in Cape Town, which I have attended, and it's been great just to listen to other females speak about their losses and moms and dads coming together to support one another and listen to each other's stories. I've been doing that. I also host a series of baby loss talks around South Africa, which unfortunately haven't started this year because I've had to relocate. But through my work of trying to raise awareness, I've been hosting these series of baby loss talks called Life After Stillness, where basically about starting a conversation on baby loss and trying to get to the bottom of the fact that why are we not talking about this? You know, we understand that babies are not supposed to die, and it's very hard for the human mind to fathom the idea of a child dying. But what happens to those mothers once they leave the hospital with empty arms? Why are we shying away from that as society? Because then who is there for those mothers once something like this happens? So I have those, and they've been very helpful to me and my husband and my family as a whole. And I'd like to think that they've been helpful to all the other women that have been there and joined into the conversation. I also use writing as a tool. I've been writing and will publish a book in June this year as well. And it's called Birthing Angels because that's what I've been doing. Basically, I've birthed two beautiful angels, and I found it very therapeutic. I think that's why I haven't been speaking to my psychologist a lot lately, because I find that writing, even though I'm the only one, and basically my husband, we've been the only two people that have actually been writing and re-editing and editing, re-editing, editing again the book. We've we've been He's been the therapist on some nights and I've been the therapist on other nights, but we've both felt that me writing has been a good way of, or has been a good tool, if I can put it like that, on embracing the grief that has become part of my life. Obviously, I do use social media such as Instagram and Facebook. I've got a Facebook page for the Lakhanya Foundation, and I've also used Facebook as well just to communicate with other lost moms as well. Yeah, and I do Skype a lot with some of the baby lost moms as well that get my number off every single social media account that I have where I put it there, because I do believe that sometimes it's hard to find people to relate to. So if a baby lost mom sees my number and they feel like they need someone to talk to, yes, I'm not a therapist, and yes, I won't know the right things to say all the time, but I also find that it helps me having someone to talk to, and it helps other moms as well, knowing that there's someone there to listen. So the conversations most of the time are two ways, where sometimes I'm the one that's listening and the lost mom is the one that's talking. And some nights I'm the one that's talking because I'm the one that needs someone there, and there's another lost mom who's there to listen. So I've been fortunate enough to have a various amount of women that have been willing to open up themselves to me and to say that, hey, this is a beautiful initiative that you've started and we want to be part of it. And it's been an amazing experience because I've just created the hashtag I am 1 in 4 campaign on Instagram, which was extremely, I don't even know the amount of reception that it received. It just blows my mind because I when I did the hashtag, it was more of, oh, hi, my name is Yonela. I want to put out there that, listen, I've gone through loss, and if I put a face to loss, then you can familiarize yourself with my situation, and maybe it'll encourage you to open up about yours. And I think it was people, other women seeing and people seeing that listen, these are ordinary women that you could see at any day on the street and you wouldn't know. So it was just, the hashtag was more about putting a face to loss, to the people that are unaware that there are women that are going through this loss and this pain and need to be recognized by society, because yes, our babies died, but we are still here and we are living with grief. So we need you to be kinder to us. So it's been amazing. I've had various tools and I've made several friends that I wouldn't have dreamt that I'd ever be close to. But because of being able to relate and to empathize with someone, you have no idea how much friendship and love grows because you guys have something in common. So I've been fortunate enough to have those tools in my life and to help me with my grief. And I think that's been more important, and that's become a very important part of my life at this point in time.
So, what encouraging words can you leave with the listener for those who have experienced loss and are in that grieving process and ready to heal?
It gets better. I named my son Lakhanya, which means he who brings light. I named my daughter Iminati Ngosi, which means God is with us. And I want to say that to every woman that has gone through or that is in the midst of loss. It is dark. Grief is dark. It rains. And when it rains, it pours. But it never rains forever. And there is light at the end of it. And you are not alone. So wherever you are, if you can find support through family, trust me, even if you go into Instagram or Facebook, there are women out there who are willing to share and hold your hand through your loss, because we empathize and we know what you have gone through. You are not alone. And yes, grief grief is not the seven steps. It's not acceptance, it's not guilt, but all of those things combined, and they are not used and they're not moving in a linear line, because grief is not linear, and you will have your bad days and you will have your good days, and it'll be a wave of emotion. But where there is grief, there was once love, and there will always be love. And as long as you have air in your lungs, there will be love inside you. So you need to accept that your grief is a sign and is a symbol of the love that you will always have for your baby. And it gets better. It does not rain forever. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your light with us. Where can
Thank
we find you on social media with your Instagram handle and your blog?
Oh, okay. My Instagram is life after hashtag Lakhanya, which is Lakhanya is Lakhanya. No, it's a long name, but it's a beautiful name. And on Facebook, you can find me at Yonela Rasi. You can also find my foundation page on Facebook as well, which is Life After Lakhanya, no spaces, small caps. You can email me at life after. Oh, sorry. You can email me at, my husband's waving at me and this is so weird. You can email me at Lakhanya Foundation at gmail.com, and my blog is lifeafterlakhanya.wordpress.com. And that's it.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
It has been amazing. This has been like months, and I've been waiting months and months and months and months and months to finally be on your podcast. I'm a huge fan of your work, and you are blessed. I will definitely tell you that you are blessed, and you are an amazing woman in what you have done with your story. And Sisters in Loss is something I aspire to my foundation being in the future. And thank you so much for this opportunity, because you have given a woman in South Africa a voice and a platform to speak about something that affects all of us women at one time or another.
Absolutely. You're definitely my African sister. So thank you so much for being on the show, and we will chat soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I pray that this show was inspirational and a blessing to you. For show notes, visit ericamcafee.com/podcast. Please join us in our offline discussions in our private Facebook group by going to sistersinloss.com. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please rate and subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. I pray that you all have a blessed week. Keep the faith, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.